Hello, welcome to the sketchbook tour of oh my god, it's so near. Hello, welcome to the sketchbook tour of the Wuhan virus sketchbook. If you haven't seen the previous video, please go check it out because it wouldn't make much sense otherwise. Okay, so let's just get right into the sketchbook. This is something I'm trying to do where I write the start date at the beginning, and when I finish it, I will write the end date. I try to do this with all my travel sketchbooks, and that is to make like a small little pouch to keep ticket stubs or Polaroids with me from my travels, and this time it's just like boarding passes because you know we didn't really go anywhere. So yeah, this is the first page, some doodles. So I didn't really have a goal in mind when I did this time, just cause you know we weren't really going anywhere, we didn't really see anything, so this is just more of a doodly sketchbook where I just drew whatever came to mind. When I travel, I try to travel light in terms of what I use to draw, and this time I brought three things with me. My usual black ballpoint pen, which is a Pilot High-Tech C 0.4, I think. This 4-colored ballpoint pen, which I use a lot, and it's like really versatile and good. So I mean one of these like ballpoint pens with like 4 colors is really fun to play with and just makes the sketchbook look you know, a little better. And I brought this gray brush pen with me, and I didn't really use it. I used it only for one page, and you know, if you've seen the previous video, I've talked about it that it was just too comfortable and I was using the brush pen a little too much, so I wanted to sort of swap back to practicing my ballpoint pen work. So this is that, and I tried to layer stuff, and it's nice because it just makes it look really alive and vibrant and really dense. Like there's a lot of stuff to look at. So I started drawing this before you know, we even left. So this is the start of the trip when I was at the airport. So some airport drawings while I was waiting to board at the gate. And then these are sort of like vehicles that I saw at the airport, like just like studies or whatever, observations or sketches based on the stuff I saw at the airport, because I really like airport vehicles, like the stuff you see at the runway where they, you know, they're refueling vehicle and whatever. Those are super cool. So I was just like trying to draw those or drawing based off of that. So I started doing these things because I watched Ad Astra on the plane, so I had the idea of like astronauts in my head, and then because of this whole virus thing and like hazmat suits and all that stuff, I started thinking about like suits, like full body suits, which sort of turned into these underwater diving suits, I guess. More diving suits here. So just a quick different variation where the arms are coming out front instead of the side, and then some, you know, small sketch variations, the tiny thumbnails, just to try out different versions. So yeah, this is what I was talking about. So this was the only page, and this is the only page in which I used a brush pen, and it just felt too nice. So when I used it, it just felt a little too comfortable and too easy, and it felt like I was doing it on autopilot, which isn't good. So I decided to just sort of not use that ever again and try to push myself to get better or keep that skill of the ballpoint pen work up instead of just like falling back onto what's comfortable. And trust me, brush pen mechs are super comfortable. It's like my all-time comfort zone. So I decided not to do that for this sketchbook. So the way I usually like to draw and work out designs is to sort of figure it out in small scale before I jump into, you know, a big full piece like this. And this is really quite large, bigger than what I usually draw. So like you see, I sort of worked that idea in my head and draw maybe a smaller version first, and it's a little bit easier to process in my head, like the design and the perspective and the proportion. So this is sort of like a building block for me to sort of think about the design and think about how things work before I jump into like a full piece, because this is quite daunting for me to just like straight up without an underdrawing. So I didn't use a pencil this time, so and I rarely do use pencils so when I sketch, so it's just like quite scary to just take a pen and just like straight up draw something this large and have it look, you know, correct perspective wise and the design. So it's quite scary for me, so I always try to work it out in like a smaller size first. And you can see here it's not really legible, but there's a like tiny scribble here, and that is actually the smaller version of this. So before I started, I just did like a tiny little I wouldn't call it a sketch, it's like a scribble for me as a reference to you know, help me visualize what this looks like. And it really is like a thumbnail. It is smaller than, literally smaller than my thumbnail, so it's a tiny little reference for me to use when I am drawing like a big full piece like this. So this is for a project that I'm working on. So like while I'm kind of doodling, I'm sort of thinking about my side project. So I'm working on a short film. I'm just gonna I'm just like drawing and designing assets that I could potentially model and bring it into the short film. So these are just like wall panels and some sort of like, you know, greeblies we call them, just some character doodles. Oh right, so I found a book while I was at home in China, which my uncle lent to me, and there were some super cool character illustrations in there. I'll put a picture somewhere here, but they're really cool, and I really dug the patterns. So I started drawing these like Chinese warriors here, and this is not Chinese, this is like something else, but I started drawing these like Chinese warriors and like kind of studying those like patterns and how to incorporate them into you know, future character designs or whatever. And I kind of like doing this. Just side note, where I used another color to sort of double draw on the page. So there's I'm kind of drawing two separate drawings on the same spread. So like the black ballpoint pen is one drawing, and then the blue ink is a separate drawing in and of itself. So there's a kind of layering, which is kind of nice. Like you can't do like two very similar things. Like you can't do two characters in, well, I guess you can, but like basically it's a balance between making it not look too cluttered and making it look nice and balanced and layered, you know. So I mean, it's kind of like that, where this is like two completely separate drawings. I'm just doing a mech doodle here, and then like in the background or on top of it is another separate drawing, and it looks kind of nice. I mean, it makes the sketchbook look dense and really cool. So I'm digging that. I dig that a lot. So this was when I was looking at the Tesla Cybertruck, and I was looking at Teslas. So it's just like some you know, vehicle sketches. Like I said, like these are all just doodles, so whatever came to mind, I was like, okay, I'm gonna draw Chinese warriors. And then like the next moment, I'm like, okay, what about cars? What about cars now? It's like sort of like ADHD drawing where you just like jump here and there. Just because there wasn't anything to stimulate my brain. We were stuck at home for 7 days under like self-quarantine basically. So there really wasn't any external stimuli coming in, and I was just left to my own devices, and my brain just like goes to like weird places. So yeah, it's character portrait done with the 4-ink thing. You've seen it in the it's the same technique I use in the Italy travel sketchbook. So that's that, and then like a Chinese dragon, just because we're in China. I'm like, okay, let's just try to make it as thematic as possible. Again, like these, it's super random, and I like doing these like layered stuff. I realized I use a lot of blue ink to like layer stuff in the background, but it's nice. It's like you know, China pattern, but we'll get to that later. More car sketches, and then like here you see the patterns that sort of emerge from looking at that book. There's like so many intricate patterns and details there that I wanted to apply onto, you know, my own drawings. This is a drawing that you would have seen on the previous video, but I sort of filled the rest of the page up with eyeball monsters. Just cause like it was a little bit empty, so I just wanted to put more stuff in there, and I was just doodling eyeball monsters, and now the page is ruined. So this is what I'm talking about with all the patterns. They're so nice, and this one too, like I believe this is a direct copy from one of the illustrations in the book, like not the pose but the design and the patterns. So like there's so much like beautiful patterns that can be used and applied onto character drawing. There's like so much potential there. So it's just like something for me to study, and it's something that I am working towards to, you know, hopefully be able to sort of capitalize on these like super cool designs. There were so many people wearing surgical masks at the airport. I just wanted to draw one. I mean, yeah. A girl where you know, she's riding a bike. She's riding some hover bike thing, and she's wearing a mask just cause I was thinking about surgical masks at the time, because, you know, yeah. So here's what I'm talking about, where I am actually trying to incorporate those patterns into my own design. So this is like a sci-fi armor thing, but of course in that style of the Chinese warrior armor look. And I just tried using like the existing patterns that I found in the book and tried to make them look more my style, I guess. Yeah, and then this is just, you know, I was thinking about, you know, birds and feathers, and also like, you know, hold on, like bird feathers or lilies at the time, or lotuses, sorry, not lilies. So I mean, I just tried to incorporate it in. And again, like, it's a really doodly sketchbook, so my brain was like super turned off. I really turned off my brain while I was, you know, doing this sketchbook. Hazmat suits, how could you not draw hazmat suits? It's topical. It's very topical to draw hazmat suits. I think they're really cool. So this thing was just sort of put a pin into that, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So mechs, of course, like how could I not draw mechs? Mechs, so how could I not draw mechs? I've gone a couple of pages without drawing them, so I gotta draw some mechs. Yeah, I like drawing stuff in like multiple angles. So if I were to just draw this and a front view and then forget about it, then I wouldn't really be thinking too much about the design of the mech. So I would just be thinking about it as just lines on a page and as an illustration. But when I'm forced to do this and, you know, draw the back view, then I'm really thinking about it in terms of like the object in three-dimensional space, right? So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about, okay, so what does this look like from the back? You know, how does this shape look from behind and below, right? It's a different angle. So I'm thinking about all these things when I am turning this object, this robot, around in my head, right? Turning it in 3D space. So it really forces, it's a really good practice because it forces you to visualize an object in three-dimensional space as opposed to just, you know, lines on the page. And if this one looks good, then okay, fine, it looks good, but it might not work in 3D, or it might not work in a different angle, right? Because like sometimes you draw stuff and it really just doesn't make much sense in terms of like, you know, this might just clash with this and this doesn't look good in a different angle or whatever, or might not fit. So I think it's a really good exercise and I really enjoyed it. Vehicle sketches, again, like these are all over the place. You know, watching Ad Astra, I sort of like was thinking about moon rovers or Mars rovers type vehicles, so I just wanted to draw something like that. Not much to say. Oh yeah, so these were the movies I watched on the airplane. So this is Ad Astra, and this was like Alita Battle Angel. So I kind of just drew them while I was watching the movie. Yeah, I kind of skipped through a bit, like these are not in chronological order, so when I draw, I try to I think the inspiration here is obvious. Now character sketches, more of the same. I started doing thumbnails for the short film, so this is, you know, just like what I normally do. And then there's like notes down here, and then we get to this. So remember I said put a pin in that. So we're looking at teacups, you know, because like if you've seen the video, you know that I drink a lot of tea, and I'm a huge nerd. So we're looking at like these. Oh my god, there's water in here, but like these like patterns for like China, like blue and white patterns. And then turns out, you know, each pattern has a different name. So this was the name of a certain pattern that I was looking at. It was like super nice. I won't say it in Chinese just because I forgot what it's called. I can't read, but it basically means like twinning lotus or something like that. And then so I went online to look at it and did some research, and then this was the pattern. This was the pattern I was talking about. So this is that twinning lotus pattern, and I just like tried to do a study of it, which like kind of bled into the other page, which is nice. I like it. Yeah, so yeah, it's just like a pattern study while we were there. More thumbnails. So most of my sketchbooks, like work sketchbooks, kind of look like this. So you can kind of see that I sort of ran out of things to draw in terms of like full like illustrations. And then it just sort of devolved into my work mode sketchbook. So there's a lot of notes and tiny little drawings and diagrams when it comes to my proper work sketchbook. This is it. It's sort of, you can see the shift like starting here. And I have this thing here which is, okay, it's really stupid, but this is a template which I made because I do a lot of thumbnails, and it's such a pain in the butt to have to use a ruler to like draw each thumbnail. So I sort of have a template which I cut out here out of like an old credit card or old Metro card, and it's measured to a specific aspect ratio. This is so freaking nerdy. It's 2.35 to 1. So it's in scope, cinescope. So this aspect ratio is measured in cinescope. So it's the aspect ratio that I like to work with the most, and it's just so much easier. So I carry it with me in my wallet like a credit card. So whenever I want to draw a thumbnail, I can just like do this, and then I have thumbnail of the exact aspect ratio that I like, the frame, and then I don't have to use a ruler to like draw each one out. It's super fast, and I like it. I mean, I love it. I carry me everywhere. It's so stupid and so nerdy, but that's how I work. So yeah, these are all uniform in size and the exact same aspect ratio that I work on screen. So I compose my shot exactly how I want it and not have any discrepancies in measurement. Okay, so this is more work for the short film. I'm building sort of modules, and I was like looking at of course like Chinese architecture just because I was there, and the work is very similar in terms of like the inspiration. So I'm very visually inspired by Asian architecture, and the short film is as well. So these are sort of modules that I built. So I'm just like drawing buildings that I could potentially model in 3D later and put into the film so that I could use to populate the city. So and they're just drawings of like shop houses and kind of studies as well. So I'm looking at like different types of like, you know, what are the different types of roofs, different configurations of, you know, balcony versus like no balcony, and like the first and second floors, and how those are, you know, composed or configured, and then how to incorporate Asian roof designs into something a bit more modern and like sci-fi-y. So I'm just doing that. That's like really designy stuff. So these are Asian patterns which I was studying that I could potentially incorporate either graphically or structurally into the design of the city in terms of like architecture or logos or whatever. Oh, so this is a mark here which marked the end of the trip. So this was when my trip ended. So I came back, I got home, and then this was the last page. More thumbnails for potential shots, possibly a bigger, more detailed drawing of like the architecture. Some logo designs, sketches, and then more thumbnails for the short film. Mech drawings. Yeah, I think that's the end of the sketchbook. thank you for watching and sitting through this whole thing. I will probably do a part 2 when I fill this up, so stay tuned for that. Bye.